Welcome to the Untypical Parent Podcast, where doing things differently is more than okay. I'm Liz Evans and I am the Untypical OT and I am your host. I'm here to open up conversations that go beyond the stereotypical child, parent and family. This is your go-to space to find your backup team, the people who truly get it, because we were never meant to do this alone. Each week, through a mix of guest interviews and solo episodes, we'll explore a wide range of topics because every family is unique and there's no one size fits all when it comes to parenting. But before we dive in, if you're enjoying what I share and want to support the podcast, you can buy me a cuppa. You'll find all the links in the show notes. Are you ready? Come join me. Archie is a specialist ADHD nurse prescriber and the director of ADHD Care Limited, a leading UK-based neurodevelopmental service offering gold standard assessment, diagnosis and treatment for ADHD in adults and children. With a clinical background in mental health and a passion for improving access to ADHD care, Archie is known for his warm, person-centred approach and commitment to raising awareness around neurodiversity. He also hosts the ADHD Care podcast, where he interviews experts and advocates to explore the lived experience and science of ADHD. As a parent of a neurodivergent child, Archie brings both professional expertise and personal insight to his work. Archie.
Hi, Liz.
Welcome to the Untypical Parent podcast. Thank you ever so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Archie and I go back a long way. We're not going to talk about how long because then everyone will know how old I am. But Archie and I worked together in CAMS quite a while ago now, wasn't it, Archie?
Yes, we did. Yeah, it's just that it feels like a distant memory now, but
It does, doesn't it?
it's good that we kept in touch
Yeah,
throughout.
yeah. And it was one of those jobs that I really enjoyed. It was a great team that we were in.
Yeah.
I think we were kind of fairly new into our careers. When you think about where we are now, we were fairly new into our careers.
We were,
Um,
we
but a
were.
good place to work.
And certainly, I know I don't want to go off tangent right now, but I was in that location where we worked together before.
Yeah.
They've demolished the whole place now. They've built flats there.
Oh,
I
don't
was
tell me
actually,
that.
yeah, it's
It's not even
unrecognizable, honestly. It's like, what? I couldn't recognize it. So
Well, we were out the back, weren't we, in porter cabins anyway.
that's what I was going to say. So the whole thing, obviously
And the
both
buildings
cabins
and the
went,
building's gone
had
as
to build
well.
them as well. So yeah, it felt like okay, someone had
Anyway, we've digressed, and this is probably what's going to happen with this podcast episode, isn't it, Archie?
um,
Archie's brain and my brain are likely to go off on down rabbit holes and all sorts. I'm going to do my best to keep us on track.
please do.
It's going to be quite a meandering one, the conversation that we have. But Archie, the first question that I ask everybody that comes onto the podcast as a guest at the
Yeah,
moment is, Archie, are you the perfect parent?
definitely not. I think when I think about that question, I don't think there is such a thing called a perfect parent. I think we try our best, and certainly I do as a parent,
Yeah.
and I don't strive to be a perfect parent. And sometimes you have to give yourself grace. And I think that as much as it's hard to say, but sometimes you look at yourself and you think, gosh, we have moments like this where you get to the end of the day and you start to go through all the different moments you've had with the children throughout the day, and you're thinking, gosh, I'm the awful worst parent ever.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, remember that one really well. Still get it.
Exactly, but I think the good thing with parenting, there's always the next day and the next day, and young children tend not to hold grudges, and I think we should not hold grudges on ourselves and be more, as I said, give a bit of leeway and more patient with ourselves in our parenting role. So I think, yeah, the notion of perfect parent is unrealistic, and I think it's setting yourself at the bar too high.
Yeah.
I don't think you should be looking at that.
And where did you where did you come to sit with that? How did you come to sit with that? Was that something that as soon as your kids were born, you thought, I know I'm not going to get this perfect and that's okay? Or is that something that's kind of grown and developed for you as you've as the kids have got older and you've experienced parenting a bit more?
I think a bit of both. I think as a parent, naturally, when you go into this, there's no one that prepares you to what you're stepping into. And naturally, what people tend to have the idea of the parent who is this amazing, fantastic parent who's able to just whiz through the day and make plans and get on with the kids and multitask and do all of that. And I think when you go into the parenting, that's kind of where I was with it. I was, I remember like asking myself, how am I going to be a parent? How am I going to be like once I step into this role?
Mm.
And I think we gravitate towards the fancy, nice way of parenting. And you look at other people's lives, you might be social media or friends or family that you idolize, and you think, and obviously you're only seeing the good bits,
Yep.
and you strive to be that, not understanding and realizing that there is tough moments and challenges that you got through. And I think it's been a journey. Certainly for me, it's been. I went in there with this notion of I want to be the best, well, not the best as I can. I think that notion came eventually. I wanted to be like my other friends or family or people that I was seeing, but that quickly changed, particularly one when I had my neurodivergent son, who obviously we discovered that pretty early. I know we'll go into detail about that in a minute, but I think that notion of perfect parenting, me working in this field and knowing what challenges that brings, yeah, I think that was those hopes were dashed pretty early.
Yeah. And it's interesting, but it's worth telling the listeners what it is you do, because actually you work as, and I'll let you say.
Yep. So like what Liz was mentioning before, that we work together. So I've worked as a clinician. I'm a mental health nurse background qualified, to then working in the private sector. So I worked in the NHS for gosh, over nearly 20 years before setting up my own private practice, which is a neurodiverse practice where we specialize in assessing, diagnosing, and treating individuals and young, so children, adults with neurodiverse needs such as ADHD and autism. So that's been my passion going back to my NHS days in sort of, I think when we worked together, Liz,
Yeah, yeah.
around about 2007, 2000, before that actually. So yeah, so that's kind of my background, and to then come into this field thinking I'm the expert, I know everything, and certainly I know we'll go into detail about my son in a second, but it was an eye opener, and I felt I could under because we used to run parenting workshops. Do you remember?
Oh, don't.
Courses. We used to do it. So, and I remember some parents looking at us going, "You haven't got any idea, have you?"
When I look back at those days and just think, what was I, but
Yeah,
you only know what you know at the time. And of course, you're employed and they say, go and run this parenting group. And you think, yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
I can do this. No
Yeah,
problem. I've read all the books. I know what to say. And now when I look
exactly.
back, I just think, oh, crikey.
I know. I know. Yeah. And you're very textbook led when you're delivering these trainings,
Yeah.
and now when I run these courses, it's so different, and now I can completely understand. So I think yeah, so that's kind of sort of my background, and as I said, we will talk more about my son as we go along.
Yeah, and it's probably quite a good time now, actually, to if you
Yeah.
can tell us a bit about your family and you've kind of referred to your son, and I know that's kind of been, as you say, a bit of a journey for you and a bit of discovery probably for him and self-discovery for you as well, and
Yeah.
your whole family and how you're all managing that. So you tell us a bit about your family and what's going on there.
So I am a proud dad to two wonderful, amazing children, young. So my son, who referring to there, he's age 10, and I've got a daughter who's aged 6. So my son is the neurodivergent one, and then my daughter is the neurotypical. So we had obviously my son first, and as I said, it's a joy when you have a son. Well, for me, it's not one of those situations where you want to find out what you're having before you have like I remember going to the hospital and hearing that, oh gosh, you're gonna have a son. Not that there's anything wrong with having a daughter, but that excitement, elation, oh gosh, you're gonna have a son. And already I was already thinking, because all of my hobbies, gosh, we can go to football together. Not that you can't do that with girls, but I had all these visions and plans and things. And like I said, honestly, when he came along, and then quickly, probably a few years after, you started to notice the difference in him. And I think to have that gift, I'll see it as a gift, I think, to be gifted with a son with neurodiverse needs, or a child with neurodiverse needs. It kind of sways you in a different direction. And I think the whole navigation, and I've spoken because I also do a podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that. So I've discussed a lot about my son and some of these challenging periods that I'm describing on my podcast, where I describe it as it's about like as if it's like when you want to go on holiday and you purchase a ticket to go to Italy, right? And you realize, wow, that plane's been diverted, is going to Amsterdam or to, Sri
Yeah.
Lanka or wherever. and you got no choice to convert. You change your route to go back to Italy. Now you have to just deal with being in Amsterdam, and that's how I see it with neurodiverse, having a neurodiverse child, where you just have to make do and learn the language in Amsterdam. You have to learn Dutch. You have to all the itineraries and stuff that you prepared before completely goes out the
Yeah,
window.
they get
That,
dumped. Yeah.
exactly, and that to me is that's and as a dad as well, again I've mentioned this on our podcast where us dads we don't usually talk about how we feel because I think there's a lot of suppression of emotions that we go through, particularly with adjusting to that. It's a massive shift in a
Yeah.
relationship as well. I remember like I just wanted to shut down. I
Did
wasn't
you?
communicating
How
how
old
I was
was
feeling.
he, Archie? How was he young
So
when
he
you
was
kind of
officially
first?
diagnosed at the age of 6, I think. Well, the autism definitely was picked up way before. I think it was
Yeah.
5 when he was officially diagnosed. But as you know, Liz, you pick these things up. I remember going to nursery and hearing about okay, there's something unique. They didn't say it's unique, but they were highlighting a few things
Yeah.
there. So yeah, officially diagnosed around about age of 5 and 6
Mm.
with ADHD and autism.
Yeah. And I
Uh,
think it's really important. And I think that's why I was so keen to have you on, Archie, is actually, when I think about the followers that I have, the groups that I run, the community that I've got, the majority are women, are mums.
yeah.
And actually, you don't hear the male voices and the dad voices
Mm.
in those conversations. And, I had a guy called Bracky from Super Good Bikers come on, and he runs a motorbike group. And he set that up originally to provide an opportunity for dads to be able to come and talk about what it was like for them going through and experiencing and learning to cope with having children that are on a different path,
Mm.
doing things differently.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why I think it's really important to get the dad's voice in that as well. And it's really interesting that you said that your reaction to that, even in the field that you're in, and so it shows again, none of us are perfect, is that your reaction was to shut down in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you go into, I think as men generally, we tend to not open up about
Mm.
emotions and how we feel. And there's a bit of shame, there's a bit of guilt that comes with that. And I also remember some of my friends, I had two friends, or I've got two friends that have neurodiverse children as well. And I was aware that they had these children, but we never had a discussion about how they feel, about understanding what the children's needs are and how they
Really?
feel in terms of their parenting. All of us three, we were going through the same in the same boat, and we're very close. We'll go out, we'll talk about football, talk about all the exciting things, but nothing about emotions or about our children, which is interesting. Up until I think um I think it was one of my mates actually. So we did this thing on a Friday. I think it was during lockdown, I think, where people were going online and catching up. We're having
Yeah.
these social gatherings virtually, and one of my friends set up a dad's kind of like Friday evening social thing online.
Yeah.
I remember that. And then from there, he sort of branched off and did one where he wanted to talk about uh, challenges in mental health and parenting, which was quite interesting for me because I remember him sending me a message saying, "Archie, how do you feel about coming on online and for us to just meet as a small group and just talk about mental health?" Because he knows I work in the field,
Yeah.
which is quite unique. So initially, I was taken aback by it. I was like, "Gosh, this is so different to what we used to like as guys,
Yeah.
our relationship." But I saw it as a good opportunity for us to connect and to actually be true to ourselves and start opening up about how we feel and about our kids and what journeys we were going through. And all of us, I think there's three of us, four, I think four of us, yeah, we were all going through the same journey and struggling in our own unique ways without actually being able to open up and talk about it. And them knowing I work in the field, again, there was a bit of this shame that they didn't want to come to me and even ask me, like, Archie, how do you go about things like applying for an EHCP,
Yeah.
educational healthcare plan? Those things that if you know someone working in the field, you can literally just ring them up. But I think again for them it was a shame. But anyway, that the positive of that, it created this opportunity for us to get together regularly, and we started to do this on a regular basis where we ended up just talking and opening up about how we feel and giving each other a bit of grace. And the next thing, other dads who didn't have children with neurodiverse needs wanted to join in and just wanted to offer some support and just listening into it. So it was
This
a great
sounds
opportunity.
amazing.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity since lockdown, and we've caught up from time to time now. Obviously, now things have opened up, but I think yeah, from then on, I think that was a turning point for me anyway in terms of opening up for
Yeah.
friends and stuff.
Yeah. And that's, I say, I often kind of think, where are the dads in all this? Where are the dads' voices? And I think it's often very stereotypically,
Yeah,
women will find groups of other women to find those supports. And there are a couple of dads in the community that I've got, but they very, very rarely speak.
yeah,
They wonder whether they're watching from afar. I don't know. That horrible word lurking, but whether
yeah,
they are just having a bit of a lurk in the background and then still picking stuff up, but are just
yeah.
not quite so able to open up and talk about it. And I think it is really important that those conversations happen.
Mm,
Um, and we know, I'm separated from my kids' dads, and I know that's the same for you
yeah,
with your relationship. And actually, we know that some of the impact as well of and the stresses of having and being in, neurodivergent families is really tricky and can
yeah,
place a huge amount of stress on relationships. And even some of us that work in the fields, know all the what we should do and what we should be doing all the time, but actually putting that into practice in our real life is really difficult sometimes. And like you say, we shut down and we withdraw, and it can put things into a really difficult place for the family to recover from.
yeah.
Just thinking about, the fact that you run a business now. So there was always something about Archie. I knew entrepreneurial. There was always going to be something, and then off he went. And I watched him go, and I thought, there he goes, and off he went. But obviously, running a business is a huge amount of work, and you're not just employed, as in not just an entrepreneur yourself. You've got a whole team that you now have, and a business that you've got. So on top of that, you've got that, and then you're a dad as well, and you're raising kids in that. How do you juggle all that, Archie?
That's a great question. And sometimes I stop myself and ask, yeah, how do I juggle it? I think it's a balancing act. I don't always get things right, honestly. And I think it's about setting clearer sort of boundaries between work and home, I believe. And planning plays a huge part. I think for me, I know the days that I have the children, as you said, like, I think for us, there's a good system that we set up whereby I'm heavily involved in the children, where I see them, we split it up. It's more kind of co-parenting. So it's for the children consistency, it's there and it's set up, so they're familiar with it, and it helps me with my work. I can plan work around that. So
Mm,
having a clear schedule of how I run this, but also factoring in my own me time and my own personal time to do things that I enjoy. And sometimes that can feel selfish sometimes. And I remember like someone saying to me, "Oh, you should just book a holiday without the kids and just go with your friends." And I'll feel so guilty, like I think I should be doing this. I should be prioritizing the kids. The kids don't have, and if you're not looking after yourself, how do you think you'll be able to then take on that parenting role and
mm.
run everything you just described there, Liz, where I'm having to juggle A, B, C, D, and I don't take time. Not just book a holiday, but just sitting down and just prioritizing you.
Yeah.
Bit of self-care. And I think factoring self-care in all of what we discuss is so important. And I try by all means to include that, even if it's me going for a walk. I like exercising. If you've seen me run a few times, Liz, I like to go
I
after a
have. I spotted you out running.
So that's me, like, even if it's an hour, I'll be like, Archie, and sometimes you can easily, like, these things can easily get lost. But I think having that schedule and knowing that, okay, I want to prioritize the kids, work and myself. Um, but there's quite a lot, as you know, with when you're juggling, children in general, there's a lot that's involved, and then you add the neurodiverse component
Mm,
to my son. There's a lot of school meetings. My son's gone through different challenges up until now. We've had to move him schools a few times, and again, I think we can do a whole podcast on that. Trying
you
to find the
could.
right environment and right support for him that's going to meet for his needs. And you, as the parent, you're constantly fighting.
Yeah.
It's a whole struggle, and it's tiring. As
Mm,
much as I'm fortunate enough that I work in the field. I've got people that I can turn to in terms of like support for my son. People like yourself, if I need some input around, sensory occupational therapy type, uh, that's helpful. But at the same time, it's still a battle. It's still a struggle where you're fighting against a society where it's like if you don't fit into that mold,
mm,
it's challenging and it's tough. So, but anyway, to go back to what you're describing, so I think it's just a balancing act. And I try to, as I said, prioritize me and my needs as well in all of
mm,
that. and I try and utilize other people's support as well. So for work, um, I've had to learn this entrepreneurial thing as I went on. It's just at least that I didn't go to some business school and did a course on
Yep.
running a business.
Just muddled your way through like we do.
It
Yep.
falls on your lap. I remember setting it up at like 2 o'clock in the morning, going, I've got this idea, right? Okay. And the next thing it just started to grow. And yeah. But I think I'm learning as I go. I'm not the greatest I'm sure my colleagues would say, there are things there that I've learned on the way. I think you navigate your way through it. But it's having the right people you can trust and turning to not to take not to take everything on. That's another thing.
Yeah.
If it's terms of like support with kids, for example, if you have friends, family that you can turn to, I know that can be difficult, particularly, for me and my family, they live in, Essex, which can be a bit of a trek, but I have other family members and friends kind of locally that I can turn
Mm.
to, because that can be time consuming. And when you have to juggle the two, sometimes the needs of the kids can outweigh the needs of the work, and likewise the other way around. So it's a constant juggling and balancing act. And
Yeah.
there's no harm in turning to childcare, like using nannies or after school care, if needs be. And that should before I used to look at that as I'm failing. Why am I having to rely on another person that I'm having to pay for to look after the kids? Like I'm
Yeah.
the parent, I should be able to do that. But there's no harm in that. There's no shame in that. But to me, I just see it as I'm failing. Why
Yeah.
do I have to turn to other people when I can just do it? I should just get on with it. And I think it's the way I was raised as well. Like I should just get on with it.
And that's a big thing, isn't it? I think when we start to fall back on it's the how we were raised, and you've got that kind of voice in your ear that's your mum or your dad or
Yeah,
whoever kind of was really significant in your upbringing.
yeah.
I have a lot of that. We laugh, but my mum used to have this saying, "Oh, for goodness sake, Elizabeth, pull yourself together." And I have that still ringing in my ears that when things get really tough and really, oh, for goodness sake, Elizabeth, pull yourself together. Now,
Yeah,
my mum is lovely and she's really caring and she would never say that in a, she was being dismissive of me. But it's funny how those little things from your childhood or the
yeah,
comments that your mum might have made or your dad might have made or whoever
yeah,
still echo in our parenting with our kids.
yeah,
And it's really typical that we'll bring the good bits that we really thought were amazing about our parents, and we try and dump the bits that we didn't like so much. And we're going to be the best parent because we know it. And then real life hits and the kids arrive, and you think, oh, actually,
I know. Yeah,
this is quite hard.
yeah. No one prepared you for this.
Yeah, where that parenting book that they gave me, that was a lie.
Exactly.
Okay, just thinking then about you've got a neurodiverse family, so a bit like me, you've got a bit of a sprinkling of neurodivergence in there, but also you've got some neurotypical in there. I'm not even going to cast judgment on where you lie on that, Archie, um, and where you might be on that kind of neurodiverse line. Um, but how does that kind of make things different, do you think, for you as a family? What's different compared to what we call the typical family, whatever that is? Have you ever met a typical family? I haven't yet.
No, no. Even if it's not involving neurodiverse needs, it's just, yeah, I don't see a typical family. There's always,
Yeah, there's something always
differences.
somewhere, isn't there? Someone's got a little quirk in there, or something's a little bit different, or there
Yeah,
is no typical family. But I suppose what makes things different for you, and you've kind of touched on it there, I think,
yeah,
and some of that is about having to go through the systems that we have to go through.
mm,
And that is a huge impact. And like you said, even
yeah,
though we've done the jobs that we do and we're still doing, you and I both have found ourselves within, local authority systems and EHCP systems and whatever. And I've been to tribunal as well, that you'd think we would kind of be able to navigate it somehow, but even we still find it difficult. So I think the big thing for me is it makes it different is having to navigate extra stuff. It's never kind of straightforward. Nothing quite fits in the box for our kids. And like you said, there's a fight almost all the time, isn't there?
yeah, yeah. Um, I think the key thing for me is um also being more mindful that you have another child, the neurotypical, in
Yeah.
my case, of the neurotypical child there, and that can easily get lost sometimes. That your time be consumed so much
Mm.
by the needs of the neurodivergent child, where the other child, particularly, as I said, in this case, she's the second one.
Mm.
When the first comes in, and that's the other thing as well. You're juggling between the two of them, their relationship as well, because my son gets so jealous. And clearly, I think you can see you add his sister into the mix. It's like he loves this attention when he's having one-to-one. It's all about him. He's had that for like 4 years, and then little sister came along, and he's like, okay, who are you? Sort of like, I'm the one who's like getting all the attention here. So I think that in itself, just balancing and getting the sister to understand about my son and
Mm.
what he's going through, not fully explaining until, because obviously I have to think about her age as well and how I explain it to her. But there's things that she might look at and go, why is my brother having this and I'm not having that? Or why can we not go to this? I can give so many examples, as I said, with my son with his autism and stuff. There's places that my daughter would love to go, and
Mm.
whereas my son would struggle when we're there. Some of it could be sensory, could be the crowds. So it's just the whole planning. I know we're going to come into the planning because I want to talk a little bit about planning in a minute, but it's just yeah, just being more. I think communication is key. As I said, talking to daughter, trying to explain it the best way she can understand it. That we can't go to Legoland on this day because of ABCD, or we having to change our plans, or this is happening because of that, which is tough in itself. And for me, as I said, to try and understand that she's also has her own needs,
Mm.
and not to make her feel quite sort of separate or excluded from that. So,
I feel
um,
quite a lot of guilt around that with my son. I don't know about you, but
yeah,
I'm not, I try and give myself, like we talk about, give yourself a bit of grace, but actually I have some sense of guilt in that for my older, because it's the other way around for me. My eldest one is neurotypical and that's my youngest that's neurodivergent.
yeah,
And his neurodivergent, the support that he's needed around that has been significant at times.
mm,
And I still struggle with the guilt with that.
yeah. I think you would naturally, wouldn't you?
Mm.
Would because you can see the look on their face, like, gosh, why? And they won't understand, and that's what there's things that they might go, yeah, but there's things that it's just hard for them to understand, and you just hope one day they'll realize
Yeah.
why that you've decided that this is happening, or we're not going to this place, or we're going to do these things that way. And I think with the sibling, it's always it's one of those where, as I said, there's the sibling rivalry. So it's like, okay, why are they getting preferential treatment? And that's always been there. Like, okay, why can I not have that? Why can I not stay up until 9 o'clock? Why is he staying up until 9 o'clock? And then let alone if you add what we discussed in there, it complicates it even more because that can look a bit like you favoring the other child.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Oh, being a bit softer. That's the other thing I kind of feel.
Exactly.
Because
Oh
my
yeah.
son will be like, but why is he getting away with it? If I did that, I would. And it's like, yeah, but. And it's
Yeah.
really, really hard.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for them, as you say. My son's 15 now. So I've also got the joys of teenagery behaviors anyway.
Yeah.
And nothing is ever fair. Um, And he finds that really hard that, there are some things that I can't address in the same way. I have to come at it a different way. And it might seem that I'm favoring or being more gentle
Mm.
and that's tough. That's tough as a kid.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know if your son has had it, but my daughter now, she's having Thrive sessions at school. And I think we felt that just for her to have her own space about
Mm.
she can process and talk to someone like a stranger or someone at school anyway, who's not part of the family about how she feels about emotions. Because some of these things can eat up and stay in them and they can internalize it, as you know, with working in the mental health field, these things can then play up and affect you as you're growing up. So,
Mm.
she's utilizing the Thrive sessions. She doesn't have to be bringing up things every week. I think it's just an opportunity for her to have time where she can just talk about what's good, what's going well, the things that she's maybe struggling and
Mm.
not really telling or being able to tell us as parents. Because I think their voice is also important as well. I think
Yeah.
as much as we
Yeah.
can try and ask and talk to them, I encourage us as parents to involve, and I do that in the evening with her, where you have like a little half an hour before she goes to sleep. It's just her. We're reading a book, and
Yeah.
she's just opening up in 10. But yeah, so but at the same time, as I said, having someone who isn't part of the family for them to be able to talk about anything that.
We do something similar in our house actually with my eldest, is that every so often we arrange that my youngest goes somewhere else and he and I get some space and time together where
Yeah,
it's just him and I. We just go and do our thing and whatever he wants to do.
yeah.
I wish I could do more of that. But now he's at that age as well. He's like 15. I'm like, do you want to do something together? And he's like, no. Oh, okay. Bye.
Yeah.
Moving
I
on.
want to do that with you for.
Not going out, not going out in public with you, Mum.
Oh gosh. Do you mean I've got that to look forward to then, Lisa?
Oh yeah, wait till you get the teenage years, Archie.
Oh my God, there's me pulling my hair out with this age group.
Yeah,
Oh
oh
dear.
dear. Just thinking,
Yeah.
the fact that you're in a neurodiverse family,
Mhm.
has that changed how you see yourself, Archie?
A lot.
Yeah.
I remember, yeah, just thinking of that question. Um, I think my reactions, my responses to things, it's definitely opened up my eyes in terms of being more mindful. Because before I could just be, I think it's stopping and just going, as we were saying before, like you're stepping into this parenting role and my expectations of how I was going to be as a dad and all of that, the dreams, aspirations, and all of this the things that I wanted to do with my family, kids, and all of that. You have to be mindful that, as I said, you have a neurodiverse young person in the mix, and they respond to things differently. And I think there's things I've realized that with a neurodiverse young person, sometimes those things don't have the same effects.
Mm.
You could say the notice, and I could see with my daughter the impact it will have. You can remove like her favorite gadget or whatever, and it will impact on her. Like, gosh, and you could see like she's learning from it, and she's like, oh my god, and I'm not going to do it again. I'm going to think before I do it again tomorrow. With a neurodiverse young person, I'm not saying they get away with it, but those things can be like, okay, you're going to remove my tablet, okay, whatever. And I'm sure there's other neurotypical children that you would have the same response, but based on my own experience, clearly the things that how you parent when you're giving sanctions, the impact that it has on a young person. For example, my daughter compared to my son. So that I've had to go, right, okay, Archie, you have to change your tactics here in
Yeah.
terms of like be more proactive. And I've learned the proactivity. So I've looked at the things and times of the day, the things children communicate these things to you. Like there's things that they do every day, okay, this is gonna set them up. And I think it's just being ahead of the game.
Mm.
But before I was more reactive,
Yeah.
more, and that this thing, and for me, like morning transitions, for example, is a challenge. I'll give you one
Mm.
example. Getting up in the morning, there's a lot of transitions that happens from getting out of bed to getting ready to having your breakfast to, doing washing or whatever, to packing your bag if you didn't do it the night before, make sure your homework is in the bag. And if you think about young person with neurodiverse needs, particularly with autism, in my case, there's a lot there, and that causes a lot of anxiety and stress, and the whole household
Mm.
is just like, oh my gosh.
And people often think that their transitions has to be kind of from one place to another, but actually there's lots of
No.
little micro transitions. It can be like you say, getting from the bedroom into the bathroom,
Yes.
getting from the bathroom to my breakfast.
Yep.
They are all
All
transitions.
transitions, and those
Yeah.
would determine what day or what mood is going to be when he gets to school. I can tell you that. So, and I think before I had a lot of expectations of like, oh yeah, like what you said there. I think I've had to learn that. I think in real practice you see it. Whereas in my head, before I had him, you just think, as you say, getting out the house, getting to the school, that transition is the micro transitions where sometimes we can take it for granted.
Mm.
More planning of it. And I think part of it, I'll put my hand up, sometimes, as a parent, you get to the evening, you've done, sit with them, do their homework, you've done this, you've done that, you're exhausted beyond, and you don't want to be thinking, right, okay, I need to make sure their uniform's ironed, I need to make sure that the bags are packed, sometimes they have their school lunches, that it's tiring. So like I'll end up sort of leaving it to the first thing in the morning. After I put my hand up as a parent, that's not sometimes not helpful because that's going to add stress to you because you're running and you're rushing in addition to trying to get them organized. So those things that I've been much more mindful of, actually you need to plan in advance, give more, give more time to these things.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that sticks out more there. And as we know, with neurodiverse your children that the more you plan, the more you involve them in the planning also helps. Sometimes I'll plan things without communicating with them, and I'll just say, okay, this is the routine, this is what we're going to do. Whereas now I'm trying to be able to go sit down on a weekend where there's no pressure. Let's look at the week ahead. We're going back to school. Right, starting from Monday. Okay, this is going to happen, and using visuals as well,
Yeah.
visual prompts. And sometimes you can take those things for granted, but I think it's key because sometimes you end up repeating yourself rather than just signposting and just showing
Mm.
them, okay, they can look on the visual, what do you call them, the packs or the aids that
Yeah.
you have in your house that would say, okay, because sometimes, as much as you think they do these things every day for the last 6 years, in Mark's son's case, he goes to school every day, he knows the routine, but it feels like you're teaching them, it's like the first time it's happening every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wake up, we have breakfast, we brush our teeth. Do I have to be prompting you all the time? And that's exhausting. That can cause you to feel stressed. And yeah, so just be more mindful in terms of your planning and be more proactive than reactive.
Mm.
Um, and just acceptance. I think acceptance is a huge one. Accepting my son is who he is, because I think I had
Yeah.
high hopes and high aspirations. He loves football. He's going to be the next Ronaldo. He's going to be the next Messi. And
Yeah.
and I think sometimes as parents, and I've seen this with other parents, even in my work as well, they push their children, they'll send them into these private schools, and okay, I want you to go to Oxbridge, and sometimes acceptance, just accept if you want to be a YouTuber, an influencer, we're in 2025. It is what it is. And sometimes as parents, yeah, we put too much pressure on children. And certainly if you're a diverse child, or any child for that matter, isn't inclined, or that's not really their passion, they don't want to go down
Mm.
that route, we should understand and just be more
It's
understanding
really
about that.
finding, isn't it? I think this goes for anybody, I think, and
Yeah,
any child that actually it's finding what you're really good at and
yeah,
going with it. And we're a long time working,
yeah,
and I think, we can end up either in these jobs. And I hear stories from parents talking about, how did you end up in this job? And they're like, oh, my mum and dad just they thought I'd be good at it, or they thought that's the route I should take,
yeah,
and they've become burnt out, or whatever. And actually, when you talk to them and say, well, what did you love? What did you actually want to be? And it's something completely obscure,
yeah.
and you're like, oh, really? That there's been a dream that they've left behind, and I think that's how I feel for my kids is I've got one that's very, very focused on what he wants to do. And funny enough, that's my youngest. He is absolutely knows he's going to be a film director, and that is it. If not, he's going to be the next Mark Commode, and he's going to be a film critic, and has a very similar style to Mark Commode as well.
Right,
So that's what he wants to do. And he's absolutely focused on what we're going to do, knows his A levels, how he's going to get there, and the route. And then I've got another one who is a bit more like his mother, who's got 20 billion different ideas and never really sure which direction to go in. And I'm doing a lot with him around, well, just go with what you enjoy. Actually, what are you great at? Because there's so many things that he's great at. Let's go down that route and see what happens and really play into their strengths. And Chris Bonello talks a lot about that. I don't really know much about Chris Bonello. Um, but he talks about playing to your strengths and, because we tend to concentrate a lot on the deficits, or people sometimes call them, all the kind of the weaknesses that people might have as being dyslexic, or autistic, or ADHD, or whatever it is. But actually those people have got huge amounts of strengths, and you play to them because, although it doesn't always fit in our neurotypical world, they have some amazing strengths. And I'm really pro that with my kids, playing to their strengths and working towards those and doing some stuff that lights you up, because as I say, we're a long time working, and
yeah.
you don't want to be in a job that drains the life out of you.
Exactly. But I suppose we didn't have that choice, didn't we? I think now young people have more options. I remember like us growing up, and it felt like your pathway was already laid for you. Like you were just going down that path, right? Okay,
Mm.
you finish school, you go to university, okay, you qualify, you go. It was something that was ingrained in us, and certainly some of it's a generational thing come from our parents. Like some of it that they might be putting pressure on us because of them, they failed to go down that path. Some of it could be okay, just because the other family or the other friend next door is going to Oxford,
Mm.
so we want to outdo them and send my kids to this. And you tend to see that a lot. And I'm saying sometimes not every child is inclined to be an Oxbridge young person. And if and I see that the impact it has on mental health, particularly my work, and I've sat down with young people before, like what you said, when you've really asked them, like they're having extra lessons, they're going to school, they're finishing at 7 or 8 o'clock. On Saturday they're having extra lessons, they're doing this, then they're doing that, and it's taking a toll on their mental health. And honestly, um, so like what we were saying, that I think it's just understanding, and just if you see that your child isn't inclined in that way, in terms of like very academic heavy, and they're very creative, they're into arts, tap into that energy. If they feel, look at Michael Phelps and all these, celebs who have neurodiverse needs, if they're
Yeah.
gymnasts and all of that, harness that talent, because that can get them far, and they can channel their inner,
Mm.
if they're ADHD, they can channel it into that. Their creativity
And
might.
there's so much more opportunity now, isn't there? I think we're still a long way from being perfect, but there is a better knowledge out there
Yeah,
around neurodivergent needs, especially, and you're hearing that talked about more and more in the workplace and within schools. Is it perfect? No way. We've got a long way to go still, but it is better than where it was.
mm,
And actually, even like you talk about, being a YouTuber, or
yeah,
the flexibility about being able to work from home, or there's so much support, there are opportunities out there now that possibly weren't there, when our mum and dad were young,
yeah,
and and the support wasn't around for that. It wasn't
yeah,
around for that.
mm,
Um, if I could take you back, Archie,
yeah.
if I could take you back to your younger days, what one piece of advice would you give yourself if you could go back to yourself when you were young? Maybe just starting out as a parent, or maybe just before you became a parent. If you could do your Doctor Who thing and zip back.
Um, I had to think about this one hard. I remember making some notes around this, and I was like, okay, I want to try and, yeah, answer it the best way I can, because there's different things I would advise myself. I would say the first thing is trust yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, and also this perfectionism that we started talking about when you asked me, are you the perfect parent? Because that can apply in all kinds of settings, in all kinds of situations. When
mm,
you strive for perfection in your work, in as a parent, in anything that you do, that in itself can set you up for to fail. And I think having that high expectation isn't advisable, isn't healthy sometimes. Doing things the best way as you can, and having that a bit more grace and leeway for yourself, that's what I'll probably say. And you're always going to get some things not right. Some things you're going to get them right, but just understanding it's a process, it's a journey, and it's just believing yourself. I think trust and believing yourself.
yeah. I think
Um,
they're really important ones, aren't they? We often doubt our gut reactions,
yeah,
and
we
they're
do.
really important.
And sometimes it's not all about following what other people are doing. So as I was saying, sometimes we look at other parents and, gosh, I wish I could be that parent. Look how they're just juggling the children. Like they've got 5 kids and I've got two, and look at me, I'm pulling my hair out. It's that, but you just never know what they're struggling with. As much
Yeah,
as you can look from the outside that they're the perfect parent, if you want to call it, but it's not following what you read on social media. And I think people portray this whole, I'm the perfect parent, look at my kids, well behaved, and we do this, we do that. That's putting pressure on parents. People going in to become parents for the first time, they're striving for that. And I think it's the wrong message that we're trying to send. So I've followed some people on social media on TikTok where this dad is literally describing his day, where he's actually being authentic and genuine. He's saying,
yeah,
I've had the worst day ever. This has happened. This has happened. To me, that's reality. We don't, sometimes it's having that balance, not just hearing the positives of, oh gosh, my child's done this, he's gone to Oxford and da 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 da. I think just having more of a balanced view and understanding that is not everything is always going to be right, and being authentic and being honest.
yeah, yeah. And if like so the listeners that we've got, there might be a listener out there at the moment that's having a really, really tricky time. What would be your top tip, Archie, that might help them?
Um, I think kindness, be kind to yourself. I would say that. Being parenting can be hard, especially when you have children with additional needs, is what we've just highlighted today. But you're doing better than what you think, as much as
Yeah,
you might think. I'm the worst parent ever. I'm not going to get this right. But you are doing right. And your children can see that you're trying your best. And you have been gifted with these amazing children. And that's a unique gift in itself that you should just embrace and accept. And also try to focus on the smaller wins as well, rather than the bigger, you know,
That's really important, the little wins.
the little wins. Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. Not always an easy one to do. I know I can hold my hands up with that one. End up in chaos and then
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
yeah, if I just asked for a bit of help or just said yes when someone did offer the help, I wouldn't be in this position, but here we are.
Do you know what? I think the help thing is a key, is a big one for me. I remember sitting on the train the other time, a few years back, and I was going into London, and there was this graffiti thing on the wall saying, "There's always help out there." I never forget that image, and it always stays with me. Where it's that little message that makes a huge difference. Where sometimes when you're going through what you're going through, and you feel like no one is, going to support you. I'm the only person. I'm the worst person ever. And that could be not just parenting, but just struggling with mental health, finances, anything that you're going
Mm.
through. It's just knowing that. And sometimes people do that, as I was saying at the start, people kind of cave in, shut down, you know, they go into this, I'm just going to cope with it, deal with it myself. But sometimes it just, as I said, just pausing and just understanding and just reaching out, even if it's just, texting a friend or whatever, just reaching
Mm.
out to someone to offload whatever you're going through. And you never know, that can lead to a whole different pathway where you might get support. I know, we talk about services, particularly with us, we're professionals. We know, we talk about waiting lists and uh, difficult to access, your referral being even accepted by the GP to refer it to services like
Mhm.
CAMS or mental health services. And some parents don't bother. And I've seen it a lot of the times when I've asked, like, okay, well, if you've not reached out to the GP, what's the point? They can't even get a GP appointment in the first place. So that in itself, it can just cause you to shut down. You think, what's the point? But I think I would say if they can, just try not to give up and just always think that there's always help, either from professionals,
Mm.
family, or another parent that gets it.
Yeah. Sometimes help comes in a different form. It's not
Yeah,
always where you expect it to. And I'm going to do a
yeah,
really unshameless link here as
yeah.
well, because one of my podcast solo episodes is all about asking for help. So
Right.
if anyone does want to know a bit more about that, I've got a solo episode you can go back and have a listen to
Yeah,
about are we easy to help? Because sometimes we're not that easy to help,
yeah.
but also kind of where you can get help from. It doesn't always look like the GP because we know those systems aren't working as well as we need them to. And how do we pack around that? Where else can you get support from? And it's not always the answer, but it does sometimes just take a bit of pressure off.
And sometimes help can come from a stranger as well.
Can.
As you say, it could be. I've found myself having conversations with people on the plane or on the train,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah, and sometimes the internet's a place for that as well. And I know, although we've talked about the downsides of the internet, but actually, sometimes on social media you do get links to people that you would never come across in your real, day-to-day real life,
Mm,
and you make connections through groups or communities with online, and those can be life-saving. I think at times. I know when we were in really really tricky dark times for us as a family, well, I wouldn't go into huge amounts of detail. There was communities out there that I was leaning into at that point. Just like you said, finding other people that got it, that understood where I was at, and you can have family members amazing, and they'll go bend over backwards, but sometimes you need somebody in that's been there.
mm.
And there's that lovely video, isn't there, by Brene Brown about empathy, about getting down into the hole with them. Empathy versus sympathy. So I'll put it in the show notes if anyone's interested in it because it's brilliant.
Yeah,
But that always kind of hits home for me is finding other people that have been there and get it. And sometimes it's not even that we need fixing. It's
yeah,
just you need somewhere a bit like your group that you had, with your dads,
yeah.
somewhere you can go and just go, do you know what? I've had a really crap day today and I did this and I shouldn't have done and I should have known better, but I didn't. And being able to be really real and raw about it.
Yes. I'll keep reiterating the point I raised earlier about looking after yourself and how
Yeah.
important and stressed enough that looking after yourself is key. certainly with any challenges that you're going through. We're talking about parenting today, but in any situation, don't forget yourself in that, because that's key. Whatever situation that you want to go into, with all the things we're talking about, reaching out to get support from other people,
Mm.
that starts with yourself. You having the strength and the energy to actually even pick up the phone, to even go online, to click on a podcast. It starts with you, and I think don't don't feel bad for treating yourself to a coffee, going for a walk, and the guilt that comes with that, which I've experienced myself, as I said before. And you shouldn't be looked down upon, and you shouldn't, look yourself as, oh, why am I, treating myself when my kids haven't got, money to take to their school trip or anything like that. So definitely, we used to run. Remember back in our when we worked together, we used to do the parenting group, and we used to have a session on coping with stress, and we were emphasizing on how important it is to look after yourself as parents and being, mindful of your own needs and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah. And something that we're often not very good at as parents, we tend to put our needs right at the bottom.
yeah,
And I think, as you say, it's that really important bit, and it takes a bit of work, that one, to be able to do it. But as you say, the importance and the benefits are huge.
yeah.
It just takes a bit of work, that one.
I think I know we're digressing a little bit there, but as we touched on the whole single parenting aspect of it, I think
Mm.
raising a child with neurodiverse needs, or children in general, is tough, whether you're single or whether you're a couple. But there's a bit of added complexity to it, clearly, I think we can say, when you are having to do it as a single parent. As much as you can have another partner there who can come in, but it's a whole different dimension in itself, and that shouldn't be underestimated.
Well, outnumbered. It's like whack-a-mole in my house. Sort one out, and then the other one's going, really? And there's only me, and the two of them
Yeah,
are just outnumbered every time.
yeah.
Sometimes they use that for their advantage, Archie, as
Oh,
well.
oh, do
They're
they?
like, they come in like there's like a dual a dual attack, it feels like. And I'm like, yes, whatever you want, just take it.
Oh, no.
Archie,
Yeah.
thank you ever so much for coming on. I really appreciate you coming on for a chat. It's been lovely for me to catch up again, because we don't see each other that often, but
No.
it's lovely to catch up. Thanks for coming on. I will put Archie's details in the show notes. So if people want to find you, where can find you, and kind of have a bit of a search and a bit of a nose about what it is you do and all the extra bits that you do. So I'll put those in the show notes. But all that leaves me to say is thank you ever so much for coming in, and thank you for talking to us.
And it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm glad that we you invited me to this podcast. It's nice to sit down and talk to you, and it's nice for me, as I said, as a podcast host as well, to be interviewed and to be guest on someone else's podcast. So
Yeah, now you don't have to do any editing. You just walk away now. Done.
exactly. Oh my gosh, yeah. But I had to kind of stop myself to go, Archie, God, you're the guest, right? You're not doing the interviews,
You
but
weren't going to start asking me
I
questions.
was going to start bombarding you with questions, Liz. But as you said, you're going to add your description, my details on your so people can listen to my podcast as well.
Absolutely. What's the name of your podcast, Archie? Let them
Called
know.
the ADHD Care Podcast. You can find it on all podcast channels, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts, and all of that. You can find us online as well on social media. Just search for ADHD Care Podcast. As I said, you can find the description links in Liz's podcast description after this.
Yeah, I'll put it all in there. I'll make sure it's all there so people can find you.
That's amazing. Great.
Thanks ever so
As
much,
always.
Archie.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you for listening and choosing to spend your time with me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please do share it with a friend who might just feel reassured to know that they aren't on their own. And if you've got a moment, a quick rating or a review helps others to find the podcast too. If you want to stay in the loop with the podcast updates and all things Untypical OT, just drop me an email and I'd be really happy to add you to the list. Take care, and I'll see you soon.